All right there. Hey, it's all about Christian rock tonight. We got a bunch of Christian rock releases in, and I'm going to show them to you right after this. Friend of mine on Facebook that I've purchased from in the past. Actually, the Neil Morse one I did, the video I did a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago, where I showed the latest album. He had gotten a copy of that for me. So I've bought and dealt with this fella a couple times, and he's always hitting me up with some good stuff. And I'm not sure where he gets all this stuff from. But anyway, over the past couple weeks, I've purchased a couple small packs here and there, and we finally finished all the transactions, so we got them all at one time. So what I got actually in the mail, I got 4 packages from the same guy because he put them all, only certain amounts would fit in there. So anyway, I've already cracked them open to save the time, so let's take a look. All right. Now this is going to be a combination of pop, rock, maybe and some metal from what I bought. It's all Christian stuff, mainly from the 80s. So I'm kind of rebuilding up, even though I've got them all on CD, kind of rebuilding up my vinyl store on that. So up first we've got AD, Art of the State. One of my favorite AD albums. Actually the very first one I ever bought. I believe it's the 3rd AD album. Timeline, and then the first one that had Dio on it. Anyway, for those who don't know, the guitar player AD was started by guitar player Kerry Livgren. He was famous for being in Kansas, and he left Kansas, formed AD, and so it still does some stuff. Well, now he just does it to Kerry Livgren whenever he does do it. But they went on to have quite a few really good albums. This is one of them. Like I said, one of my favorites. The first one I ever listened to, and it's from 1985. Really good stuff. Just kind of Kansas-y, but not quite as strings oriented. It's just kind of a good rock and roll. And then we've also got Reconstructions, which I believe came out right after that. Which would have been whatever the next year. Also one of my favorite ones. These are probably my 2 favorite. It's nice to have them on vinyl. Trying to think. Yeah, Prime Mover is another one. I don't know if that ever came out on vinyl. So anyway, my first vinyl AD, and we got 2 of my favorites. Saw this one in a thrift store months and months and months ago, and I really kicked myself that I didn't buy it, because then I went back a week or 2 later and it was gone. But I'm glad to have it there now. All right, great. Now this, here we go. Get some power pop punk, Undercover. Now Undercover in the early days, this is their second album. I would love to get their first album. They were, very kind of a pop punk in the days. That was, kind of a new thing in the Christian movement. God Rules, really good album. I believe this was the first one I had by them. Later, I found that they had a first album prior to that, and that'd be great to have on vinyl. But then after this, they had Boys and Girls Renounce the World. And I remember when I had this album, I couldn't get enough of this. It was just, I played it and played it and played it and played it. It was one of my favorites. You can see the band there. And again, by today's standards, this is just going to be really kind of fun, poppy stuff. Green Day-ish, but 80s style. All right, that's box 1. Let's see what we got in box 2. All right, yeah, I mentioned this one on commenting on somebody else's video the other day that I was getting it. Petra, Captured in Time and Space. This and the other one you're going to see in here mean that I'm going to have pretty much all the vinyls except the first 3, which are the older stuff. I have all the ones that I really wanted. I do want to get the first 3 at some point, but anyway, this is a live album. And it's a double live album. Greg X Volt's Time Frame which I really enjoyed. And this was like their first live album. Really good stuff. I used to have the video of this too. Used to watch it all the time. So my Petra collection is becoming more complete. This I was glad to get. Res Band Silent Screams. If you watch one of my previous videos, I showed how I had a good majority. I think I have like 9 of the Res Band albums. So this is one of the ones that was a little later. 88. Because they started in the 70s, so they had a lot of, really bluesy rock stuff. And then this is when they were, a little more hard rock. A little less bluesy, but still hold to the blues. I remember when this first came out, I was running a magazine at the time. I had the promo pack that came with this. And actually, I think I recently sold it on eBay. It was like all the little material that they send out and stuff, and it was a photo and everything. So, but the album, I haven't owned in a long time. So that's helping with my Res Band collection. Let's see if we dig in here. And then this is the one on the Petra. This is Petra's On Fire. This one tends to be kind of a little harder to run across, but he had a copy, so I'm glad to have this. This is the John Schlitt era when he joined the band after Greg Votes left. So their style had changed a little bit. I've already got Back to the Street, which came out before this, and that's the first one with John Schlitt. This one, though, is really one of my favorites, so I'm really thrilled to have this on vinyl. Now these I picked up. He was kind of like, well, let me throw in a couple extra for you. What do you want? I grabbed 2 more by Dave and the Giants. Now, if you watched in a previous video, I talked about the one Dave and the Giants that I bought at a thrift store for like 12 cents. And I bought it because I've seen these guys live. They were down from around the Gulf Coast where I lived for a while. Saw them live. And the drummer, Keith Thibodeau, this guy here, is the one I had mentioned, used to be on the I Love Lucy show back when he was a little kid. If you remember Little Ricky, he would come out and play drums, and he was Lucy's kid. And he only made a couple appearances here and there. Well, anyway, he grew up. He still plays drums, and he played with Dave and the Giants for quite a while. Yeah, there he is there too. So I have 3 albums now by Dave and the Giants, and not the one that I knew back in the day the most that I really want to get, but hey, I'm taking what I can get. 1983, 1984. I believe the one that I'm looking for is 1985, and the one I got over there is a little older. All right, so box 2. Let's see, box 3. In 3D. Okay, so this is a second. I think they've only put out 2 albums. This is the second album by N3D. Now, when they first came out, and interesting, okay, so I bought this mainly, even though this came out, this was one of the first ones they had on CD. They never released their first album really on CD back in the day. I bought this album back in the day. This is literally the one I had. It's kind of, you can tell it's kind of beat up, but the vinyl's in good condition. This band was really interesting. At times they sounded a little bit like the Police. At other times they just kind of, I don't know, it's just a solid, straight ahead rock band, no flash or anything, but the some of their stuff felt kind of proggy at times, where the time changes and the weird beats, and the drummer was just really cool and solid, and the guitar player was really cool. And this album just really, really, really hit me good back in the day. I used to listen to it all the time. Back when I got rid of all of my vinyl, I kept a few vinyls that I didn't have at the time on CD that I didn't think would come out. This was one of them, so this survived from the days when I had original vinyl, and I kept this. So when I saw that he had this, even though I have it on CD, I thought, well, it'll complete my vinyl collection because now I have the vinyl of that. So really good. And this band's a little more commercial, a little different. It wasn't quite as gripping as the first one to me. It just they kind of fell into a general sound. This is cool now. Barren Cross, Atomic Arena. Atomic Opera. That's another band. I have the first Barren Cross album, so now I have the second. So now I need a couple more to have their vinyl. This is one I've seen on the VC quite a bit. People have been showing it, and actually Ron showed it the other day. Metal Ron over at Mind Over Metal, because he got one recently, and I commented on his video, said, "Hey, I just ordered one of those too," and I finally got it in the mail. So anyway, glad to have that. Been a big Barren Cross fan. Actually, Mike Lee has a website, michaeldrive.com. michaeldrive.com, and I'm the webmaster, so I do a lot of work with Mike now, even though I've never met him. But so I took over his website for him 10 years or so ago, and had been controlling it and talking to him and stuff. So love the Barren Cross. And this one I was just surprised to see he had. This is great. My first White Cross on vinyl. This actually never really came out on CD. It's an EP. It's only got 4 songs, and it never came out on CD. So having it on vinyl is neat because, you know, while I may have the tracks now, there is no literal, you know, separate CD for this. So this was kind of like you have to have it on vinyl. I love White Cross. They, you know, people say they sound a lot like Rat, and they do, and that was appreciative back in the day. I saw them in 1987 at Cornerstone Festival. It was my first and only time I went to Cornerstone. It was their grand appearance. Nobody really knew who they were. Their first album hadn't even come out yet. They blew us away at the show. I saw them a couple times after that. I actually got to meet the guys because I was kind of good friends with the guys from Tempest. The singer from Tempest later went on to be with Guardian, so Jamie. I did a lot of, I was friends with them way back when, and so when I was living on the Gulf Coast, they were living down in Pensacola, and I used to go over and hang out with them, and they played a show with White Cross, so I was backstage documenting the behind-the-scenes stuff and got to, you know, hang out with these guys in the background too. You know, it was really neat. All right, that's into box 3. Leaves us with the final box 4, which is going to be the good one. All right, this is going to be the metal stuff that I was thrilled that he had that I could get for a good price. Messiah Prophet, Master of the Metal. Probably the best Messiah Prophet album out of the 2 that they had. If you really want to count the other ones, there are, they have 3. But, so you had the first album, and I'd love to get that on vinyl. It's a really good album, Rock the Flock. And then you had this. This is the first one they had on Pure Metal. Pure Metal Records. And this is the one that I guess most people say is the best. It's the one that we played to death back in the day. It's the second album. The band kind of broke up. Later, they put out another album with a different singer, different band members, and it didn't sound the same. But technically, it's labeled Messiah Prophet. I was a member of the Messiah Prophet fan club. Used to get stuff from them every couple months. I have a button out there that's got a membership number and some other stuff. Used to love these guys back in the day. Anyway, so yes, I was very good to finally get a copy of this. Now, this is a piece of metal history classic that I owned back in the day, California Metal, Part 1. This was one of the first compilations back in the day that came out where Christian metal started really getting some attention. So the Regency Records was one of the labels, Pure Metal was one of the records where labels that started doing Christian metal, even when it was in the days when people were fighting against it and the church was not taking it. But with this one we saw we get Barren Cross. Before their Atomic Arena album, they had Deadlock on here, a slightly different recording. So this was cool. It was like, oh, something new from Barren Cross after we'd only heard their first album. 2 songs by some weird band named Deliverance that nobody had heard of really. I'm trying to determine whether I had the demo of them before or after this. Of course, we know Deliverance now. They're mega big. But A Space Called You and Attack. Space Called You is kind of mellow. Attack being a thrash song that really introduced us to what we were going to be getting with Deliverance. So Guardian had 2 songs on here. Basically from the demo days, they went on to, of course, be who they are even to this day. And like I say, I kind of became friends with them back in the day when I was doing a magazine, and so still connections there. Hero, a different band that never really did a whole lot, but they have 2 really good songs on here. They played the Metal Mardi Gras and stuff, but the singer for Hero used to be the singer for Holy Soldier before Holy Soldier got Stephen Patrick on vocals. So, but he never really recorded anything beyond like a demo, I think. And I've got a copy of that. It's a really rough demo from back in the day when he was there. But then Hero did a couple things, and they weren't here. Now Mastodon, not to be confused with the Mastodon that is currently on the circuit that's like a heavy metal band. This is Mastodon, Mastedon. And that's the Elefante brothers, John and Dino Elefante. John Elefante was a singer for Kansas. He sang on a couple of their albums in the early 80s or whatever. And then he went off, and him and his brother opened a music studio, did a lot of producing, music, recording bands, producing stuff. They started their own label, Pachyderm Records, and they had a band called Mastodon, and they released a couple CDs which are really good, kind of a real commercial type metal. Neon Cross went on to record a couple albums, really good stuff on here. So this was just like a great compilation. I said, well, I gotta have that, and they did come out with the California Metal too. They came out with further albums after that. Regency went on to do a lot of compilations. Regency Records did a lot of compilations featuring multiple bands. Now this Melikhaya Red Sunrise. Now, this was just recently reissued on CD, which I cannot reach right now because the box is in the way. Kind of a CD release, a multiple CD release of all of their stuff. This is their second album. Their first album was an EP, Under the Blade. And if you try to find a copy of that these days, you're going to pay hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I like that album better because it was raw. It wasn't overly polished. This has a lot of keyboards on it. Same songs, but new recording with a lot of keyboards and stuff. But I had to have this for nostalgic reasons, just because it's a part of history. And if I ever found the first album, I'd really love it. I have it digitized, but I don't have an actual. It'd be nice to find on vinyl, but it's hundreds of dollars. This is a band that I don't know anything about them. I bought this album back in the 80s. I remember it being pretty good. It's just kind of a good solid rock album with, kind of an edge to it. But never heard much about who they were. 1986. Never spent a lot of time looking them up, who they were. Did they ever put anything else out? But when I saw that he had it, I thought, well, that's kind of cool, because I had that back in the day. Still have a copy of it now, but not on vinyl, so I went ahead and grabbed it. Yeah, Free Reign Records, I'm not even sure. And then last but not least, Triton Celestial Messenger. If anybody knows about Triton, they're a Christian band that when you listen to them, they sound a lot like Rush. There was a demo that came out before this that I had, and I remember being blown away by that, and so was looking forward to this. The drummer is a phenomenal drummer. And the singer sounds a lot like Geddy Lee. I actually let a friend of mine back in the day when this came out, I let him hear it. He was a huge Rush fan. He's like, wow, is this a new album? Never even heard of them. And what's he singing? Whatever. He became a Christian? What? So then I told him, no, it's a new band, but it's really close. Most of the songs. On the second album they came out with, it was not quite as, it had a little Rush flair, but not quite as much. This album, though, it did. And they're a three-piece. And anyway, great stuff, great addition, nice to have on vinyl. So that is it. That is quite a bunch of albums to get at one time. Thrilled. That's a big jump. I'm not sure. This is Christian music and this is Christian music, and I don't know if I'm going to fit them all in here, but I'm going to give it a try. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and rock on and keep spinning them discs. Later.